Tom Brady retires, but then he didn't, but he still might. But he's not close to a decision yet. But ESPN stands by their reporting. But his dad says it's all conjecture. We dive into a wild day here on an emergency episode of the Locked On Bucs podcast. Let's get to it.
You are Locked On Buccaneers, your daily Tampa Bay Buccaneers podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
What's up, and welcome to the Locked On Bucs podcast, your team every day, free and available on all platforms here on the Locked On Podcast Network. And that, of course, includes YouTube. I am James Yarcho, joined by the traveling man, David Harrison. You can find everything that we're doing over at bucksnation.com. Make sure you follow along on Twitter at Locked On Bucs, at JYarcho_Bucs, at DHarrison82, and at Bucs_Nation. David, we might have missed a few episodes this week, but we're making up for it on a Saturday episode of the podcast because there's no rest for the wicked.
Yeah, and of course, we do appreciate all of Bucs Nation tuning in, making the Locked On Bucs podcast your first listen or your first view every single day. I am currently in a hotel in Chattanooga, Tennessee. I cannot promise you the quality of the connection that we have will be any good, but we are going to try more clearly than major media networks did. For those who may have missed it, Tom Brady has essentially decided to retire. Unfortunately, ESPN let the cat out of the bag a little too early for the GOAT, so he promptly stuffed the cat back in the bag, or at least he tried to, and here we are now left kind of in a holding pattern, wondering what's going on. But James, I'm pretty confident that Tom Brady is retiring, and here's how the whole thing transpired Saturday afternoon. It started with Jeff Darlin and Adam Schefter of ESPN co-reporting, according to that Tom Brady was calling, basically citing those close to the quarterback after 22 years of being the greatest player to ever play football. Oddly enough, later on, Rick Stroud of the Tampa Bay Times, Greg Auman of The Athletic, beat reporters covering the Tampa Bay Buccaneers said they could not get confirmation from the Buccaneers or from Brady's camp that he has, in fact, made a decision. And then Mike Silver, later on of the NFL Network, reported that Tom Brady called general manager Jason Licht, told him personally that he had not made a decision on whether or not he was going to retire or not. And then Jeff Howe of The Athletic said that Brady was not even close, quote unquote, not even close to a decision. James, all of this leading up to Ian Rappaport of NFL Media reporting the following.
Yeah, nobody has actually denied that Tom Brady plans to retire. And there's been statements that sound like denials. There's been Tom Brady's father telling Mike G that basically calling this speculation and saying that he hasn't firmly decided. There's the fact that Tom Brady told the Buccaneers that he has not decided for sure to retire. There's the statement from Brady's longtime agent, Don Yee, calling this speculation, which is basically what he calls everything involving reporting. Anyway, everyone has said not no, but not yet. My understanding, confirming the initial report, is that Tom Brady does plan to retire. Talked to several people close to him that they believe he has played his last down of football, retiring after 7 Super Bowls, 3 MVPs, 22 seasons, endless Pro Bowls, the greatest quarterback of all time, all of that. This sounds to me, taking all this together, to be an issue of timing more than anything. Brady is very in charge and in control of his brands. He generally has fantastically well. He is producing a show on ESPN Plus about his entire career that has not yet filmed the final episode. I wonder what will be in that episode. That would be interesting as well. But this is not all buttoned up. The understanding is the plan is, in fact, for Tom Brady to retire.
All right, so a lot happening on Saturday pertaining to quarterback Tom Brady and whether or not he is or is not going to retire. But I agree with Ian Rappaport, James. I think that everything that has come out is basically pointing to Tom Brady calling it a career, but he wanted to control the message. And just like Ian said, we've been talking about it before recording. I was actually talking to my wife about it. Funny enough, because she doesn't care one way or the other whether Tom Brady retires playing. But I basically told her, like, puts together these videos, you know what I mean? After wins, before games, he puts together these videos and they're very well done. And I just feel it's Tom Brady's MO to put the way he wants to. You look at all the players that kind of came out: Mike Evans, Chris Godwin, Julian Edelman, I don't know if Gronk put anything out. I know TB12, the brand itself, the Twitter account, put something out before promptly deleting it. So that's interesting. But it seems like a lot of people who are close to Tom Brady basically knew this was coming. And then when the reports started coming out, they kind of prematurely went along with it. Like they didn't really act surprised. You know what I mean? So I feel like this is probably something that's going to happen. And it was just, somebody pulled the trigger way too quickly. And now Tom is trying to kind of unring the bell, so to speak, so that he can ring it the way that he intended to in the first place. And I think he has every right to do that. But James, I think that ultimately Tom Brady is going to retire. The Tampa Bay Buccaneers are going to need to find a new starting quarterback for 2022.
If I were going to put money on it, I would not bet on Tom Brady retiring. I will talk about that in just a moment. And look, there might be less football being played right now, but BetOnline has way more stuff to bet on this playoff season, from scores, totals, player performance props, to where the next fired coach is going to land. BetOnline is the number one spot for all things NFL betting in 2022. And with the new year comes a new updated desktop and mobile website. Sign up today and receive your 50% welcome bonus on your first deposit with promo code Locked On. And it's not just football. BetOnline's basketball, hockey, boxing, UFC odds coverage is the best in the business. From sports right to your favorite Vegas casino games, BetOnline is your number one online wagering destination. BetOnline is the fastest and easiest way to wager on all of your favorite sports and play your favorite games. BetOnline, where the game starts.
This bonus episode of the Locked On Bucs podcast is also brought to you by Built Bar, the protein bar that tastes like a candy bar, maybe even better than a candy bar. James, one of my favorite flavors is strawberry. On my drive from my house to Chattanooga, Tennessee, where I find myself now. I don't know why I think it's fun to say that name of that city, but I actually had myself a strawberry Built Bar, and I can confirm it is better than a lot of candy bars I've eaten in my life, and I've eaten a lot of candy bars. Unlike other protein bars, Built Bars are not chalky, they're not waxy, and they do not taste like a chemical spill. And most Built Bars, or all Built Bars, cover 100% real chocolate, and most of them pack just 130 calories, only 4 grams of sugar, only 4 net carbs, and 17 grams of protein. Compare that to a candy bar that usually has around 240 calories, 30 grams of sugar, and dozens of net carbs. And I'm also realizing why I don't have a chair that swivels in my home office. Here's an idea. Get rid of your candy stash and replace it with a Built Bar stash with lots of flavors to choose from, whether it's strawberry, which is kind of a seasonal release. They've got coconut, almond, peanut butter brownie, raspberry, cookies and creams, and so much more. Go to Built.com right now and see everything they've got. I've got eggnog Built Bars on the way. Not sure how that's going to go, but I'm going to give it a try. You can get some of your own if you like. Again, go to Built.com, use the promo code LOCKED15 like I did, and you'll get 15% off your order just like I did. Again, promo code LOCKED15 for 15% off at Built.com.
Thank you for making this special edition episode of the Locked On Bucs podcast your first listen or first watch every day. We really appreciate it. And look, David, I don't see Tom Brady retiring. I don't see it in the way that this has all gone down. He would have to pay the Buccaneers back $16 million. He would leave them with $24 million in dead cap space, which would essentially cripple the team moving forward. I don't see him doing that. He signed this extension, committed to them for another year, and 45 has always been the mark, right? It's been, I want to play till I'm 45, or it's been, I'll play till I suck and then I'll stop. And him sucking is just never going to happen. He would be playing like this at 60 years old. He's coming off of one of the best seasons he has ever had in his career. And I don't think the lasting image of Tom Brady in the NFL is him walking off of his home field after a divisional round loss to the Rams. And I understand it's nearly impossible to, finish a career with a Super Bowl win. Peyton Manning was lucky enough to be able to do that. The odds of that happening are very slim. But overall, this Buccaneers roster, even with the pending free agents, they are going to bring guys back. I have a lot of faith that they'll bring back Chris Godwin. I think they're going to find a way to bring back Leonard Fournette. They would find a way to bring back Rob Gronkowski, if Brady doesn't retire. This team can still win a Super Bowl next year with Tom Brady under center. And I think even if he was on the fence, the fact that this all went down this way, Tom Brady is that competitive type of person. It's like, you know what? You tried to jump the gun. You tried to steal my announcement from me. So you know what? I'm coming back for one more year and I'm going to shove it in all of your faces. And I can honestly even see Brady coming out, making one of those videos, maybe doing a press conference, something like that, saying, look, this is my final year. This is after this season, I am done. Do not give me a farewell tour. Do not do any video tributes. I don't want it. I don't need it. But this is it for me. So don't ask me after every single game if I'm going to retire after the season or not. One more ride with these guys. That's what I told them I would do. That's what I'm going to do. Then it's time for me and Giselle to be with our children all the time and just be parents and have a good time. So I'm still of the belief that until the words come out of Tom Brady's mouth, I think he's back in 2022.
Yeah, I mean, you're not the only person to suggest that maybe Tom was leaning towards retiring, and because of this, will actually not retire. Which, if that happens, every Bucs fan needs to find out what Adam Schefter's charity of choice is and donate $12 to said charity. That's just the way this needs to happen. Yeah, I mean, look, I hope you're right. I want one more year of Brady. I want to see him, Super Bowl or not. I mean, honestly, I don't even care. Like, I think that when you see greatness, like we always have, there's always like a best in the league, and there's always a best player in football and all that stuff. There's always going to be, but greatness doesn't run all the time. You know what I mean? Like you look at Kobe and LeBron, like even everything that Kobe and LeBron did, it wasn't MJ. You know what I mean? And it hasn't been MJ. Like, those are rare. So even as much, and I'll admit, like I've poked fun at the Patriots in the past, and I've made fun of Deflategate and the Tuck Rule and all that stuff. I mean, who hasn't? That's not a Pats fan, right? But you still kind of understood the greatness that Tom Brady was bringing to the game, and if you have the option of seeing that for one more year, you want to see it. So whatever the motivation is, if Tom comes back, obviously everybody will welcome him back with open arms. So I hope you're correct. But James, there are members of Bucs Nation who are also thinking forward, and that's what you do when your team is no longer competing in the playoffs. Unfortunately, we got a call following or in the midst of all of the back and forth on Saturday. So let's hear from that caller now.
Hey, it's Mark from Central Florida area. There's a lot going on today with Brady retiring, unretiring again. I know there's a lot of free agent quarterbacks out there. If Brady does decide to retire this year, it's something that we just run with Kyle Trask and let him get the reins, or you think we try and trade for Deshaun Watson, or maybe we try and sign Russell Wilson or Derek Carr, or what are your thoughts? Do you think we just run it with the rookie, or try and get a veteran or young player in the prime who can show once that what he does off the field does not translate to what he does on the field? Thanks. Go Bucs.
Appreciate the phone call, Mark. And that's actually a very line of thinking and questioning for us here. And James actually is going to dive into all of those options that you pretty much mentioned. All week, this coming week, guys, James is going to be diving into potential replacements for Tom Brady. Should he retire? Should I be correct? Should Ian Rappaport be correct? Meanwhile, I will complete my journey down to Mobile, Alabama, where I'll be covering this year's Senior Bowl with a lot of other personalities from the Locked On Podcast Network. So keep an eye out for that content as well. So, I mean, guys, you can get up to maybe 10 episodes of Locked On Bucs this week coming. So make sure you're keeping the stream refreshed. Make sure you're keeping the YouTube uploaded and subscribe to that. Click the notification so you'll get told when a new, fresh Locked On Bucs episode is dropping. And if you have a take about one of the usual suspect names, the Russell Wilsons, Aaron Rodgers, Deshaun Watsons, Jameis Winstons of the world, if you have a take on who you think should succeed Tom Brady as Tampa Bay Buccaneers quarterback for next season and moving into the future, send those in to lockedonbucspodcast@gmail.com or call them in to 813-444-5841. Again, James will be in those options all next week here at the Locked On Bucs podcast.
Tom, are you retiring? For those of you on the audio, Tom Brady, the bobblehead, was shaking his head no. I still think he's going to be back. But with that, we are going to get out of here. Like David said, I'll be back next week. I'm probably going to have Evan Klosky on at least one episode maybe more than that as we dive into some of these quarterback options and talk about what could be next for the Buccaneers. That door number 2 that Bruce Arians famously likes to look behind when his starter is no longer there. Until then, hope you all have an absolutely outstanding weekend. Stay safe, stay healthy, wash your hands, be good to one another, fire the cannons. We thank you so much for joining us right here at Locked On Bucs.